Okay, as OJ said, if there's anything you need to know as I'm talking, if you want to know more thorough description on how to do something, just put your hand up and ask, and OJ will come and answer and get you to ask the question. But that's what this is about. This is not about me standing up here showing you how good I'm supposed to be. Okay, this is about showing you how to do it yourself. Because anyone can do it, that's the thing. Okay? I'm going to show you the specifics on how to cast accurately, okay, and techniques, but also how to tune your reel in properly. Because a lot of people, when they get a bait caster, how many people own that type of reel there? Put your hand up. Now, in all honesty, how many people have trouble casting them? Same hands. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to go through how to tune your reel in first, okay, because all bait casters come with an axle control, and most of them these days have a magnetic control on the left-hand side. Now, what they used to say was to tighten that cast control up on the right-hand side, like that, until the weight of the lure gently dropped to the ground with no thumb pressure on it, and they said that that was perfect, right? You remember that? Get that out of your head, because that's all garbage, okay? Right? What that does, if you tighten your cast controls up that much, it means that you have to put twice as much power into casting to combat the friction that you've done by tightening that screw up. Okay, the way to tune that screw in is to back it off until you can get hold of the spool on the reel, and you'll feel a little bit of sidewards play in the spool. It'll go click, 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 click. You just feel it little bits. And then you tighten it up a fraction, feel it, little bits at a time until the play's gone out, which it nearly is. Right, the play's gone out, so now I just back it off a fraction, and that's set perfect. Because all you need to cast a bait caster is one of them. Right, that is more finely tuned than any cast control you'll ever have on your reel. But the secret to it is to make sure that when you cast one of these things, the principles of it are, I'm going to cast down the middle here, right? So as I cast, my thumb can never leave the spool, not even for a fraction of a second during the cast. The reason for that is once I've cast it like that, it can only slow down, and my spool's going to keep spinning at the same speed. So what I have to do is make sure that my thumb stays on the spool and slows the spool down at the same speed as what my lure will slow down in midair. Okay? If my thumb comes off, big mess, and we don't want that. So, now, power. You don't need power to cast a bait caster. I've got a little 7-year-old son, and he can cast as far and as accurately as what I can at 7 years old. Okay, so don't think that this is an expert thing or you need any special talents to do it or anything like that. I come from Australia and I can do it, so you guys are laughing. Alright, so what we do is rely now on our rod. Okay, now the rod, you'll see how little my hand moves. Did you watch how far the plug goes? Okay, this is not about power, all timing. It's like golf, you know golf? It's all timing to get a good swing. It's exactly the same. Now there's a few different casts that you can do. I'm going to throw this target up there. We'll throw this up the middle. That's our pretend fish, okay? Now the reason it's so important to become accurate is if you can imagine that can there is a fish and I'm landing my lure out there, not too many fish are going to travel that far to eat the lure. Alright, and most of the time if you've got a snag in the water, the fish will be here. If my lure's landing out here, he's not going to travel that far to eat it very often. Okay, so what we need to do is learn how to put the lure there, on the fish's nose, and tweak the lure back nice and gently. Okay, now the other thing is to landing a lure hard in the water, especially on areas that get a lot of fishing pressure, fish become spooky. Right, now if I was to line up that fish and hit the lure on the head like that with a fast cast, it's going to spook the fish. Okay, so we need to learn how to land the lure gently, and there's a few different casts to do that. Now 90% of your casting, particularly long distance casting, will be done overhead like that. Okay, but there are times when you need to be able to get your lure to travel close to the water and get up underneath the shadows of the trees. Because coming from high down to low, I can only reach the outside shadow. I can't get right up on it underneath where the fish are. Okay, so this one here is called a backhanded flipping cast. Now all I'm doing is I'm winding the lure right up to the rod tip, like that. That removes any room for error. Right, and then all I do is I roll my wrist from out to in. And I just do it very quickly. And what it does is it loads the rod tip, Okay, so I'm using the power, the weight in the lure to build up power in the rod tip. Okay, so this is all comes down to rod design. You don't need to spend 900 ringgit to get a rod that will do it. Okay, so that's most important. But as a general rule of thumb, thanks mate, as a general rule of thumb, more expensive rods do cast better. Okay, so that's one cast. Now there's another one called a bow and arrow cast. Now this one is for when you've got to be walking the bank or the shoreline, you've got a tree here, and a tree here, and a tree here. And no matter what you do, you can't get any room to have a cast. Right, so you drop your lure down, grab hold of your lure, lower your rod tip, and as I let the lure go, I lift the rod. Okay, and that's preloading. All you're doing is preloading the rod. One thing to be careful of when you're doing this cast, one, you don't overload the rod. So if I overload that rod, obviously I'm going to break it. Okay, the way around that is as I load the rod, I lower the rod down. As I let the lure go, I lift it, like that. Okay, and that actually swings it out instead of flicks it. The other thing to remember, when you get hold of your lure, it's got hooks all over it. Right, now the secret is thumb, index finger, middle finger, clamp the rear treble, have a quick look at the lure and make sure that the hook points are in front of your fingertips. Because if you do it wrong, you're going to know. Okay? So all you do, load it, lift it, let it go like that. Simple. Bow and arrow cast, that one's called. Any questions so far?
No.
No? All good? Now, another thing that will make accuracy casting very easy for you, first of all, I get asked a lot about rod length. Right? Short casting, say from here to that sign at the back there, no longer. You don't need any longer than 5'6", 5'8". Okay? The rod rating that I'm using is 12 to 16 pound. Okay, so these are all the questions I get asked all the time, just so you guys know. The type of rod is a samurai blank, and the reel is a Shimano Chrono. Okay? But, see, I mean, I do a lot of fishing. I fish 3 to 4 days a week because I write for several fishing magazines and stuff like that. So I have to fish all the time, which means I can't afford to use cheap gear. If I hook the fish of a lifetime, I don't want to lose it. So I need to use, and I need the photos to do the articles. So, okay, so any questions so far? No? There's lots of people shaking their head. Don't worry, anyone can do it. If you do the things that I'm talking about here, anyone can do this. All right, and as you can imagine, it is very, very important when you're on the water. Another thing that's going to help you for an overhead cast. Now these were called overheads. When they first came out many, many years ago, these were called an overhead. So when people cast them, they thought that the reel had to be over the top of the rod to cast. And you'll still see a lot of people trying to cast like that. Trouble is, when I go back, that ligament locks up there, and I start moving my elbow, then I start moving my shoulder. And if you're fishing in a boat with someone else standing behind you, you can imagine what's going to happen. Now if you roll your wrist inwards, it loosens that ligament up. So all of a sudden now I don't have to use all this. Okay, so it's all about using the rod tip like that. Okay? The other thing is overpowering a rod. You see a lot of people try and cast fast. If you cast fast, it gives you very little reaction time. The slower you can make your lure travel through the air, the more reaction time you have to be able to guide it and steer it. Because I can steer this around about that far through mid-air. If this is not going where I want it, I can drag it across and steer it in mid-air. Okay, but if it's travelling too fast, I don't have the time to react. Okay, so I can sort of steer that 6 inches like that. Okay? Any questions? There's got to be something. Okay, now the reason it's so important, yes?
Hi. Would you like to share with us some of the tips on your brake settings on your bait cast reel?
Brake settings
Yes.
is in the axle control?
Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
Yeah, I'll go through that again. You obviously weren't here for the first bit, but the one on the left-hand side, this is what I didn't go through before, the magnetic cast control on the left-hand side. Most of them these days go from 0 right round to 10. No higher than 3. Once you go over 3, you're really choking your reel. You're restricting how much distance you're going to get, which means you've got to cast harder to combat that friction. Simple equation, you cast harder, you get less accurate. Right, so you need to be able to cast very, very little effort. Okay, now the one on the right-hand side, I'll go through this one again real quick. If you back that dial off, right, until your spool will slide, you'll just feel a little bit of play in the spool from side to side. Right, so actually I'll come up there so you can feel it. Right, so if you put your fingers on that spool and just wiggle it from side to side, feel the play in the bearing. Right, you keep feeling it and I'll tighten it. Feel it again. See, feel it getting less. Yep. Try it now. A little bit more. There you go, play's gone out. That's set perfect. Okay, now you watch how quick it drops to the ground. When I point that down there, it drops to the ground very quick. But if my thumb was to come off, it's going to do that. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm using the very tip of my thumb, not the ball of my thumb. If I use the ball of my thumb, too much surface area. I'll go down there so the speaker doesn't scream at me. Okay, so that's another good point to make actually, is that when you're doing this stuff, don't use the big flat part on your thumb. That big flat part there is too big a surface area. Okay, you want the very tip, it's the very tip of your thumb to run on the spool. That way you have much more control, infinite control on how much line comes off. Okay? Okay, so any questions now? That was a good question though, yes? Yes, that's another good question. Okay, I chase a lot of big fish that live in the stags. The only reason I make sure that my spools are full are two reasons. One, I've got a fat thumb. So my thumb won't fit down inside the spool. If my spool's half empty, it'll rub on either side of the inside of the spool. But second, if I hook a 120 centimetre barra on an outfit like this, I've got to have the line capacity to let him run. So yeah, I always make sure that my spools are full. You've heard the expression top shot, right? Everyone knows what a top shot is? No? Okay. What a top shot is that you've got half a spool of mono and then you've got to top it up with a braid. Don't do that if you're chasing big fish. Okay? The reason for it is that's one weak link. You don't want weak links between you and the fish. Any knot, extra knot that you put in your rig